Hi, I'm Jason Van Ruler, and I'm a therapist that works a lot with couples as well as just clients looking to have better, healthier relationships. This has been such a gift that I've been able to do this and walk it out because what's true is that I didn't really grow up with the best role models for relationships. And then I went on to have a bunch of relationships that actually weren't very healthy either. And so along the way, I picked up some real information about what it takes to have a healthy relationship, and then also what it takes to make it last. And these are things I think so many people are wondering about. So I'm just grateful that you're here today. Whatever state your relationship is, whether you're dating, you're in a relationship, you're married, you're newly single, whatever that is, I'm glad you're here trying to figure out how to do it better. I applaud that. From my perspective, conflict is such a big deal in relationships because it's unfortunate, but it's just inherent to the process. We're going to have conflict. And so I know people really struggle with this because some of us don't like conflict, right? We avoid that at all costs, but it's also part of the relationship. And so what I want to talk to you about is how do we navigate conflict using a very simple system to actually work towards resolution? Because one of the places that I see couples struggle the most is when they have conflict and they simply don't resolve it. And then what happens is that we begin to develop this kind of huge amount of baggage because there's all this residue from the conflict we haven't solved. And then every time that we have an argument, we bring it all back in. And when we argue about 15 different things, and we'll talk more about this later, but when we argue about so many different things, we actually never resolve the issue. And before too long, couples start to feel like if we can't resolve the issue, then what are we doing here? And that is a terrible place to be. And that's often when I'll get a phone call from a couple saying, Jason, I don't know if this is working for us because we just can't move past our conflict. And so my goal today is to help you not solve all of your problems, but to get a better idea of what it might look like to approach conflict differently. And when we do that with a bit of intention, we're not going to get it perfect, but the goal is that we do it better so that at the end of it, it actually strengthens our relationship and leads to connection. So 3 things that I see couples struggle with the most regarding conflict and their inability to resolve it is this. Number 1, and this is a big one, they're fighting about 2 different things, right? So one person thinks we're arguing about X and one person thinks they're arguing about Y. And as you might know already, when you're arguing about 2 different things simultaneously, chances are that's not going to work out very well for you. Number 2, they argue for way too long, right? So they go on until eventually someone is emotionally flooded and they blow up. And then at the point they blow up, there's never really any resolution. And then number 3, they don't actually know what they want. So if they know what they're talking about, what they're arguing about, they don't actually know their position, what they want or what they need. And so when you don't know what you want or need to resolve a conflict, then we have a real struggle actually resolving it because, again, we're not sure what that is. And so my goal today is to help you address those 3 things through this system. And then you can use this to walk this out in your relationship and gain some clarity about what the conflict is, what you want, what you need, and how we'll resolve it. So in the next parts, we'll do this. Along the way, I'm going to try to give you helpful pointers about things that I might suggest or things that I've seen happen. And as with any information that I give you throughout this series, just know you're the expert on you and your relationship. This isn't meant to be tailored to anyone in particular. It's a general overview of a system for addressing conflict. And so you might need to do it differently. You might need to amend it. And we'll talk more because sometimes we're going to be in a relationship where even though this might be helpful to some, this might be something that is just not far enough along for what you need. So you might be in a place where you're saying like, I'm actually thinking about ending my relationship. And so, Jason, this small system about conflict isn't going to help resolve the big stuff. And I agree. It's not meant to be an end-all be-all. And for some couples, they're still going to need therapy. But my goal is to at least give you something that you can try before maybe taking those steps or in tandem with taking those steps. So that's what we'll talk about today. Just as a reminder, I've worked with tons of couples, and this is really where my heart's at. And the reason for that is that I've seen so many relationships that thought they were over and thought they couldn't do it anymore. And then once we got clear and we started to work together and we really figured out what the problem was and people started being seen and heard and understood, we had resolution. And with resolution came connection. And that's what I want for everyone watching this. And I know that's why you're watching, is you want connection. And so my hope is that throughout this process, you find ways to get more connected with your partner and get that relationship you deserve.